within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time.
The Legion of Dans. The meeting will come to order. The Legion of Dans is now in session. It is the purpose of the Legion to align our infamous forces against the power of sad collectors and defeat them, leaving us, the rulers of the toy world. To do this, we have gathered together 4 of the most ruthless and happy toy fans on Earth. The noisy Daniel Lynch. The flexible plastic Dan Newman. The pixelated Dan Erdley. Not to mention the wise old elder and insider myself, Daniel Pickett. We are the Legion of Dans.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the brand new episode of Legion of Dans. We're very excited to be back. I am Daniel Pickett.
I'm Danny Newman.
I'm Daniel Lynch.
And I'm Pixel Dan Erdley.
And it's so great to talk to you guys again. We had a little bit of a break there because we had so much stuff going on with Comic-Con, I think.
So much stuff. Yes.
And personal lives and things, but we're back on track now. And we're better than ever, and we've got our website up and running where you can listen to episodes.
Oh, yes.
At legionofdans.com. We are on iTunes now.
Woo-hoo!
Yes, you can search for us for Legion of Dans and subscribe to us there. Give us some comments, give us some reviews, and we're working on getting up on Stitcher next.
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe even by the time this episode goes up, we'll be on Stitcher for all you Android folks.
Excellent.
Yeah, we are rolling now.
That's right. Domination. Dan Domination begins now.
Indeed. So, gentlemen, how have you been since... when did we talk last? Was it March?
I think it was May.
May. All right.
It was. We had some pre-Comic-Con discussions on that episode. And
yeah.
Well, I guess I should take that back. We were sitting down and all speaking together, but 3 of us saw each other.
True. Yeah. You guys left me at home. I'm still kind of mad about it.
3 of us.
We did talk about you. We did miss you very much, Mr.
Well,
Lynch.
thank you.
We wish you could have been there. So I guess why don't we go ahead and start talking about Comic-Con, because that's always a great big deal for everyone. It's kind of like nerd Burning Man.
That's the one in San Diego, right?
That's the one.
That's probably why I missed it.
Yeah. But you always do your trademark armchair
coverage that I say every year I will be the last year, and then every year I still do it again.
Now, why would you say it's the last year? It's so helpful.
It is really helpful, but it just really takes a long time. So it's kind of one of those things where I never remember to take off of work. So it's always stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning, clicking on all these links and compiling them, and then being at work at 8. So maybe next year I should just say I will remember to take off of work, and that will be a more successful prediction.
It's funny because, you say you're doing that for all the folks at home that can't go, but I know a lot of us that are there actually rely on it too, because there's so much stuff going on.
I hear that quite a bit.
You can't keep track of it all.
I hear that quite a bit.
I always tell people online that they have a better understanding of the exciting things that are happening at San Diego Comic-Con than those of us who are actually at San Diego Comic-Con, because
that's true.
We can only be in one place at one time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this year it was kind of goofy too, because Mattel and Hasbro went up against each other in their toy panels for Star Wars and Masters of the Universe.
Right.
So
that's bad timing.
That was bad timing, yes. So we had to for AFI, we split the team. We sent 2 guys to Star Wars, and 2 of us went to Mattel.
Right. Yeah, you would think that it'd be pretty understandable for the people doing the scheduling at Con to maybe schedule smaller panels that have things in common at the same time. But it seems like Hasbro and Mattel are pretty big panels that have big audiences, and they would do a little bit of work and try to not overlap those.
Yeah. I mean, like the two biggest toy companies, right? You'd think that they'd understand that those are the
Yeah.
two biggest toy panels that are probably happening, and they put them at the same time.
Right.
No, I had heard a rumor that Mattel might have submitted late, and so I think they might have got fit in where they could, and it might have bumped up against Hasbro.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, they should have been sent down to 29AB, and they should have given the AFI panel that prime time slot.
I agree.
It sounds fair to me.
Yeah, one of my panels was 29AB, which was the absolute furthest possible room in the con. I mean,
Yes, it is.
I felt like I needed to leave breadcrumbs to find my way back to the convention when it was over.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But what are some of the favorite things you guys saw and or experienced or came across, either at the show or reading about the show?
God, I didn't go to San Diego Comic-Con last year for the first time in a while, and so having had that year off, once this year came around, I was kind of apprehensive about the whole thing. Like I'd lost my groove, and I was all of a sudden nervous and anxious, more than normal, about this con. And so I was driving out there with trepidation and like, oh my goodness, it's such a chaotic thing, and there's a lot of stress involved. But I got to tell you, after even just preview night, I was like, wow, this con is really awesome. I'm having a good time. I've already accomplished a lot of the things I set out to do, and it's just getting started. And honestly, that's kind of how the whole con turned out. It was a much funner experience than I was preparing myself for.
I completely agree. It really did feel kind of a different vibe. I mean, preview night was a little weird, like, we were getting in as press and professionals, a lot of us, and the line to pick up badges this year was 2 to 3 times longer than it's ever been.
Yes.
And thank goodness there wasn't any, exclusive line that I felt like I had to get in for preview night. There wasn't like Super 7 had something crazy I had to get, which has been the last, 2 or 3 years. So, got in a little late, but it just felt like the whole show was a little, I don't want to say smaller, but less crowded.
Yeah.
Once you hit the floor in certain areas. Saturday and Sunday morning were still kind of goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saturday was bonkers, like always.
Yeah.
I mean,
Saturday was bonkers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I was really intent on getting my Skeletoken, which was a little coin that would get you into the Super 7 pop-up shop, which was further up in San Diego proper. And so
it was off-site. It was
off-site.
not at the show.
Yeah, right. And so that was, I kind of laser beamed that as soon as I walked in the doors on preview night. And as a matter of fact, Meg and I were going to separate, and she was going to go to Mattel and I was going to go to Super 7 because they were both handing out the Skeletokens.
Yeah.
But we walked in and we happened to be just kind of right in one of the doorways that led right to the Mattel booth. And so we just kind of stayed together and we went to the Mattel booth and walked right up to it and got our token within, 5 seconds.
That's awesome.
And so I didn't know what that experience was going to be like. So I had this massive wave of relief when I had that token in my hand.
Yeah. I wonder how different the experience was with that for some people too, because it was a little different with me. I think it was kind of funny because that was my intent too for preview night. That's the one thing I knew I needed to do. And you were talking about anxiety and stuff leading into the con.
Yeah.
Man, all those Super 7 reveals and then the token thing and everything. I had this sudden wave of anxiety flush at me right before the show where I was just I wasn't worried about getting anything. Now all of a sudden I got to get a stupid Skeletoken so I can go buy all these cool He-Man toys.
Right.
So it got really kind of intense.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I did, too. I went straight over to the Mattel booth, where they also happened to have a bunch of new reveals just out, which they have never done before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So the first thing I had to do was work, and I got a bunch of shots of the stuff I needed. And then there was a lady standing there, and I kind of spotted that she was holding on to the tokens in her hand. So I asked her for one, and she got real like, she started quizzing me.
Yeah, I got quizzed as well.
Yeah, she was like, "What are you after?" I was like, "One of those tokens that you're holding on to." She goes, "Why do you want this token?" You know, like, and I was like, "Because I want to go buy the Super 7 exclusives." Oh.
Do you understand what I've done to be standing here right now, and you're really going to quiz me?
Exactly.
I got the same thing, and I can't remember if it was the first night or I guess it was preview night.
It was just...
But it was a couple of Mattel people that I knew, even.
Yeah.
But they still wanted to make sure that you knew you weren't just one of those people that, because there's a ton of people there that just want free stuff.
Yeah. Right. But and
so they wanted to make sure you were going to take it and, I guess, go.
I know. But it was still kind of like, lady, this is Comic-Con. I don't need to be answering your crazy quizzes, okay? I just need to go buy my toys. But the best part was...
You didn't do that. I'm Pixel Dan,
yeah,
right?
You know who I am? No. I did not do that.
Lady, I gotta go buy a Moss and Chia Pet right now.
I've kept you in business for 3 years.
Yeah, I'm the guy.
It's the only reason you still have a job.
I'm the guy playing on your TV monitor right there.
How about I quiz you?
Yeah.
What am I talking about right there?
But the best part is eventually that during preview night I did stroll down to Super 7, and they were just like throwing those tokens at people. You didn't have to answer no quizzes for them. They were just like, want a token? Want a token? Want a token? You know what I mean? They were just throwing those things out. So
yeah, I have a feeling Super 7 had a much bigger vested interest in getting people over to that pop-up shop.
Yeah.
So
now I never actually made it to the pop-up shop. So can you guys kind of talk about what it was? And because I know Danny Newman, you stood in line for a while, didn't you? Or did you get in?
Well,
did you get in early?
I do kind of have. Yeah, I did get in early, and this was and this was kind of a another experience that really created the more positive general experience with preview night. I ran into a buddy who all of us are friends with, who was also doing some business at Comic-Con, especially on preview night. He had to meet with some people and talk about some licensing things. And he had a meeting to go talk with the owner of Super 7. And he said, "Hey, why don't you come up with me? I can probably get us into the pop-up shop a little bit early." And man, that was music to my ears. So I went up there with him, and sure enough, because he had this, interview, this business to conduct, we were able to get in there early, which I felt slightly bad about because I looked around the corner and that line was forming, and it was kind of heading down the block.
It wrapped around that block entirely.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And I had to stand in that line.
I feel bad telling this story because I know how lucky I was I would say our friend's name, but I don't know. I don't want to get anybody in trouble or anything or whatever. But got into that shop, and it was really cool.
Val Staples.
That's him. That's the guy.
No. No, not him. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The pop-up shop was really neat. They, I've never been in it before this, so I don't know exactly what it looked like, but it was really well done. Everything was like super neat and well arranged, and it was just full of these Masters of the Universe exclusives that Super 7 was selling. But beyond that, they did other special things, like they got custom wallpaper made, which I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of. And this wallpaper was amazing. I mean, it was not only was it a cool design, but it was flocked. I mean, I want to get this wallpaper for my home. Yeah. There were some custom paintings that they had commissioned artists to do of like Skeletor standing at the fireplace with a goblet of wine or whatever. I mean, like it was just a cool experience and a really well done presentation.
Yeah. So I've been to the Super 7 shop in San Francisco, and I know they've done some custom Star Wars wallpaper that they've actually sold. And I guess the San Diego Super 7 shop opened last year at Comic-Con, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this year they sort of redressed it to be all Masters of the Universe. And I talked to the owner, Brian Flynn, when we recorded him. you guys know this, but the listeners don't all know. I'm working on a documentary right now about action figure collectors. So we were interviewing people at Comic-Con, and we interviewed Brian Flynn, and he said they wanted to sell to everyone in that line on preview night, and they stayed open until 4 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
Selling things to people on preview night.
Yeah, wow. It was pretty intense. Like because they didn't open the pop-up shop until preview night closed.
Right.
So
right, like 9 o'clock,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, at 9
Right?
o'clock. So you didn't have to like run over there as soon as you got your token or anything. You actually could finish out preview night, and that was like my plan. I was like, well, I'll just do preview night, and then I'll just mosey on downtown and go into this store. I don't know why I didn't expect it, but I didn't expect there to be that big line.
Yeah.
And it was, I walked straight there as soon as preview night ended. I think I grabbed a burger on the way maybe. And so then I got over there right before 9 before they opened, and the line was already wrapped around the block. And I ended up waiting 2 hours, I think, to get in and get my stuff. And that's the longest I've really waited all weekend for anything, but it was the one thing that I really wanted to make sure I got the stuff,
Yeah, sure.
But then, kind of, I guess, on a similar story to Danny, I ended up getting back into Skeletor's Lair 2 more times throughout the week for various events that I was invited to. Like, because Mattel had a party there, and then He-Man.org had a party there. And, of course, while you were there for any of those parties, they were still selling their stuff. So, in true freak-out Comic-Con fashion, I did everything I could to get that stuff the first night, and I totally could have been way more relaxed and just picked that stuff up throughout the week. Because they also had plenty of it to go around. That was the other cool thing. Like, none of that stuff sold out and was gone. I mean, you could have bought it all the whole weekend. And then, they sold it online, too, on their store after the con. So
that's the crazy thing about San Diego is, like, no matter how many times you go and kind of have that similar experience, you just never know. So, like, you can never just leave that to chance, like, I'll be able to get it later on the weekend, because, like, the one time you do that, it's not going to be the case.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Like,
well, even especially, with Super 7, I mean, with the Alien stuff, they sold out on preview night twice with stuff, so I get the panic.
Yeah. Well, they must have done really well then, which is encouraging. I'm really glad, because when I was, to be honest, when I was in there and looking around, I'm like, especially at those big jumbo size He-Man and Skeletors that they did that were kind of like the test shot colors, or I forget how they described those. Like, when the doors finally did open and people started rushing in, I was amazed at the crowd of people that, like, went straight to those and started stacking them up in their arms.
I know.
I mean, weren't they like $100 a pop or something?
$100 a piece, yeah. They were $100 a piece, and people were buying those things in stacks.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
They did 12-inch versions of the little...
No,
not those.
They did. It's the same jumbos that Mattel released, like the vintage figure jumbos, but Super 7 did them in test shot colors to make it look so...
Yeah. I did see that.
Yeah, and like they were like $90 a piece or something like that, or 100. And yeah, people were totally stacking those things up and buying. I was just like, oh my god! Like, you saw people walking out with stacks of those. They're like, well, that person just dropped over $500. That person just dropped over $600. You're seeing these people walk out. So yeah, they must have done really well for themselves.
So, Dan Newman and Dan Erdley, did either of you get a Chia Moss Man? And if so, how's he doing?
I did, but I got one, but I haven't started it yet.
Oh, man.
Haven't started growing it
My
yet.
plan is to do a video, and I want to document, the growth and everything. So as soon as I have a chance to get that started, I'm going to.
Oh, Danny, you got to do a time lapse of that for sure.
That's what I was about to say. Awesome. Well, so Daniel Lynch, do you have a favorite thing that you saw that you're interested in getting? Came out of the show?
There was a few things. I did want to comment too, just from the non-attendee perspective, that this year was actually a little bit more like years past, just because the last couple of years they've gotten everything so prepackaged and prepared that, like, the reveals are on USA Today beforehand, or that the reveals are. If, like, Mattel would just, like, well, they've got you all in the room, they're like, we posted it online already, so don't bother with everything. And this year was a little more disorganized. It was kind of nice to kind of go back to that old way where you had to really kind of look around at the various sites, because they just dumped so much stuff out on preview night. so many companies that it was kind of back to just watching all the different websites, all your guys' sites, just to kind of see where the roving eye went, because there was just so much out that first evening. So that was kind of nice just to kind of get back to that old way. It was, I mean, there's probably some value to them just releasing the information ahead of time and having it ready like that for general people. But I'm always kind of more partial to the toy news sites getting to do their thing. So I thought that was kind of cool this time.
Yeah, that's kind of the weird thing too, is that there were so many reveals of exclusives at the show right up until the show opened.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do all this plan and, you know, make your chart and say, I got to get this, this, and this, and then suddenly, you know, Super 7 comes out and goes, oh, and then there's these 12 things too.
Yeah, they totally dumped all that stuff on us the week before the show.
Yep.
Yeah. And Mattel too was just like, oh yeah, we'll do a Batman
Superman. Yeah, after the pre-orders had already shut down for all their stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, try and come get this, you know, just like, and it was like, Toynami did that with that Shogun Warrior Godzilla.
Yeah.
It was like 3 days before the show, and they go, oh, and here's this $300 item.
Nice.
Put that in your budget.
Yeah.
Do you think some of that can be chalked up to they just weren't sure if they'd have them delivered in time?
I think some of that, absolutely, yes. Yeah, they don't want to overpromise and then not have the product.
Yeah, it seems like there's always a story. You know, I always hear stories every year of somebody, some company, or somebody there selling something that's like, you know, like they're just waiting for the delivery and it's coming straight there and they're putting it right out.
Yep. So yeah, that was kind of goofy, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, it was an interesting, different thing this year. As for the specifics, and we'll probably talk about a lot of the same stuff, I think. I think one thing that was kind of more that I got excited about that I didn't see a lot of people talk about, and it's really kind of hard to get excited at this point, so I understand. But Mattel taking their DC Multiverse line to 6 inches, which kind of screws everybody else they've already done in 4 inches. But by doing that and using those DC bucks again, it was kind of like DC Classics isn't really dead. Like there's still just kind of a little bit of life there. And a lot of the stuff I wasn't too. I mean, like I take away my nerd card. I have not really watched the Arrow or Flash TV shows. We don't really get CW here, so I haven't really seen a lot of those. Mm-hmm. And they had 3. I think there was like 3 of those TV figures. And then on the comic side, it was still kind of the DC collectibles have already. If they did that, the Snyder versions of Batman and Joker. And so I mean, all that was fine, but it was really just that Calvin Harris Superman from Earth 23 from Multiversity. Just seeing him in 6-inch form. And just being like, I'm going to get that figure, and just having just getting a new DC Classic after we got that last Doomsday. It's in it, and I don't think I've ever reviewed it, but I've got this picture in my mind of all the figures sitting there like it's a giant tombstone, like it's the last figure ever, like that old 70s cover, and that's it. And then here we are, you know, just 2 like scant years later, and here is this Calvin Harris Superman that even though he's packaged with some movie figures and other, you know, there's other things going on, but I'm just like, okay, I'm not totally out of luck. You know, this might sell well. There might be a future wave. We might even if it's just Superman, Batman characters, just any little thing I can get to add to DC Classics, I'm just so excited for. So I think that was probably my one big takeaway that I didn't really see covered everywhere. But yeah, Calvin Harris Superman's coming to my house for sure.
Well, I think some people were sort of confused that, you know, Mattel was sort of relaunching that scale with figures that DC collectibles have just done too.
And that's such a weird thing.
Like, what?
Yeah, I don't, and they've kind of always done that the last year or two, even of the main line. It was kind of like, you know, I mean, I don't really mix them, so or I didn't mix them back in the time, so it wasn't as big a deal to me. But collectors that don't mind mixing them, it's just like I can just imagine pulling your hair out because you're like, they just gave me this from this company. Why don't you do something different? And that unfortunately was still just the one big thing in that little setup. I think out of the like 6 figures, I think the only thing that was really new that would be unique is that Superman, and then the Justice Buster. I don't think DC Collectibles has done that giant Collect and Connect Batman yet.
They have not.
So I mean, just 2 things. It's kind of like I think it would still behoove Mattel to make different stuff. It would just maybe sell better, but I don't. They just seem to overlap like that. I never have understood.
Yeah, and I know there's still some DC UC stuff that was sculpted and never released, so it'll be interesting to see if some of that shows up in future waves.
Yeah. So buy 6-inch Multiverse because I want more. That's all you need.
That's one of those things that I completely missed at the show. It's always amazing to realize how many things you just completely overlook and don't see. While
it was in the bottom of one cabinet. I mean, I didn't see how Mattel had everything laid out at their booth. I know that it was in the bottom of the cabinet, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't anywhere near the front of anything. So yeah, it was just kind of this little leftover thing, like, hey, we're still making these, and then
FYI, these are here.
No one covered it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the bottom left of one of the cabinets, underneath all the Batman Unlimited
Yes, yeah.
stuff, Batman and his sharks and his vultures and all that stuff. And the stuff kind of kept changing from day to day what was in the case.
Oh, wow.
Like there'd kind of be one new figure, so you'd walk back by and go, hey, wait a second, that wasn't there the other day. So, that was pretty strange. But, again, it's nice to see DC's not dead at Mattel.
Yes.
I know we're going to be getting a ton of Batman Superman stuff coming,
and that's okay. I mean, there's still some non-Batman Superman stuff I would want that I probably won't ever see. But I mean, at this point, I mean, the line started out that way. We're getting us, Parasite Steel, some great figures. So I mean, if it's that way now again, it's still something. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Dan Newman, did you see anything you were particularly excited about at the show?
Well, yes, but you got to forgive me because it's not necessarily new stuff.
All right, I'm not forgiving. That is unacceptable.
Right. I rarely go to a toy show of any magnitude, either just a local show or San Diego Comic-Con, expecting to find any good vintage stuff. It just doesn't seem like it happens much anymore to stumble on, a vendor selling really cool vintage things. And but this year I did find some really cool stuff, and actually stuff that I was looking for anyway. Mark Huckabone always sets up an interesting booth at San Diego, and he brings a lot of cool stuff. But this year I feel like he brought even, he dug even deeper into his, warehouse of amazing things. And I feel like he brought some more of it this year. Or either that, or he just brought the perfect things for me. So right away on preview night, I found,
And just Mark Huckabone, just in case people don't know the name, he was featured on the last season of Toy Hunters, sort of as Jordan's rival, but he has been a toy vendor, dealer, almost since the early '80s. He was a guy that went and bought up a bunch of Mego's clearance stock after Mego went bankrupt and stuff, and just put it all in warehouses.
Yeah.
And he's also been making some of his own toys, like Presidential Monsters.
Right.
It's Mego Universal Monster.
Yeah. Those are cool.
And he's recently got he's had a license for Mars Attacks that he's been doing some stuff with, like Mego scale Mars Attacks and some little sort of stylized vinyl guys. So sorry, that's Mark.
No, thanks. That was a good description. And so he sets up a booth, and it's sort of hard to get into it because there's this wall, this outside wall that he fills with like plush and stuffed animals, and that's on the outside, and that's how you know it's his booth. But as you get closer and you look past this wall of plush, the entire inside of the booth is floor to ceiling vintage goodness. And so I was kind of looking in his cabinet closest to the aisle, and I saw some Dragon Riders of the Styx figures carded, and that got me excited because I've been on the verge of diving into that line and starting to collect it. And so I was just about to make him an offer on these figures, and as I looked up to speak to him, I noticed on the shelf behind his head was a Mego Comic Action Wonder Woman Invisible Jet playset, which is something that I had been looking for a while, and it doesn't come up very often on eBay, and often when it does, it's broken or not complete or whatever. And so I saw that, and my eyes got really big, and I completely abandoned my offer I was about to make on Dragon Riders and asked to see that, and eventually, made a deal with him, and he gave me, a decent deal. And so, man, I walked away from there with a huge grin on my face because I found like something I had actually been looking for, vintage toy wise, right off the bat at Comic-Con, and throughout the weekend I actually picked up a couple more things. So for me, that was super exciting.
And the other thing about Mark's booth is no matter what show he sets up at, he and his employees just seem to keep shifting it around the whole time. It never feels like he's done. And anytime you're walking to talk to him, he's always acting like he's busy, like moving stuff around and moving people out of the way and, brushing people off. He's a nice guy once you get to know him, but he sort of gives off this real gruff persona at shows and things.
Yes.
Now, Danny, knowing you like I know you, and we were actually roommates at Comic-Con this year, so I got to see you come home with that and a smile on your face. How you typically sort of agonize over purchases and really weigh things. Right. I imagine you spent some amount of money on that. How do you sort of drop that early in the show, knowing that you haven't seen everything?
Man, that's a really good question. I think it speaks to a conversation we had, I think, on the last podcast when we were talking about white whales. And I was talking to another friend about this recently too. It's like you when you collect vintage and you have a narrow focus like I do, at a certain point, the things that you are looking for are pretty rare. You only stumble upon them every so often, and so when they do come up, you need to be prepared to get them. So it's like, maybe a month goes by and I don't really have many toy purchases. Well, that's good. Don't blow that money. Throw that in the reserve because maybe next month one of those super rare things is going to come up and you got to be ready to get it. And that's kind of how I viewed this particular piece at the show. Obviously, I spent more than I was anticipating, but in my mind, it was like, this is something I had been looking for anyway, so the price I paid for it was worth it. And if that means I have to sacrifice kind of like nickel and diming my money away the rest of the con on just little piddly things that are impulse buys, I actually got something I wanted.
Now, that thing was in lovely, lovely shape.
Right.
Have you opened it?
I did, and I don't want to get into too big of a story. The box was open, and I wanted really bad to take a picture of this invisible jet, and I had the photo in my mind already kind of composed.
You can't. It's invisible.
Right. What I found, and I don't want to kind of like, kind of dampen the story, but when I took the invisible jet out, I had found that at some point in the life of this toy, somebody had glued down the cockpit. And so when I went to open it to put Wonder Woman in it, I couldn't get it open. And this completely tweaked out my whatever OCDs I have. And I spent an afternoon like just freaking out, needing to figure out how I can get this thing open as safely as possible. Well, it was not as successful as I would have liked. I did kind of like, mess it up a little bit, but I did finally get it open. And I was pretty livid just at the whole scenario, the fact that it was glued together in the first place and I didn't know it when I bought it, and I was mad at myself for kind of, ham-handedly trying to fix this. So I resolved, like, okay, well, what's done is done. What I need to do now is take a photo of this thing that will make it all worth it. And so I kind of, I do this, I have this little hobby of taking photos of my action figures, and I composed this shot and got it all set up and went out to the park and took it, and it's a shot that I really, really love. And so when all is said and done, I still feel good about it.
Awesome.
Have you posted that shot?
Yes, I did. It may be my cover photo on Facebook right now.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that.
Check it out.
I'm gonna
see it.
So anyway.
All right, Pixel Dan, anything you saw that you were going crazy about?
Oh, man, there's always so much to look at. I wish I would have gotten the chance to actually look at the dealer floor like Danny got to, because I love doing some vintage toy shopping, but I never get to do that at Comic-Con. It kind of sucks.
Do you stay the whole time?
I stay through Saturday. I usually fly out Sunday morning to get back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, otherwise Sunday would probably be my day to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, I pretty much spend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, those whole days working, going from booth to booth, from appointments. But seeing all the new stuff is cool.
Yeah, that's. I had noticed that I was doing the same thing. I just worked the whole show, taking pictures, running around, and finally, at one point, Abby, when she was, I think it was before we were married, and she was still, helping me out. She'd be like, "Why don't we just assign everything to everyone? Everyone has to turn everything on Saturday, and Sunday you just see the show." And it's so simple, but it had never occurred to me.
Yeah.
And so for the past 3 years, it's like, all right, we'll break up all the pictures where everyone needs to go. They turn all their stuff into me by Saturday, so I know if there's anything we've missed. And then Sunday we just walk around and see stuff.
Yeah. You really owe it to yourself to do that.
Yeah, I need to figure something out. You got a team though too. I don't, what I do is just pretty much me and my awesome wife, who I certainly couldn't do this without, because she just follows me around everywhere I need to go and films me doing things. So, it gets a little rough. And I know you do a lot of interviews and stuff too, but that's like mostly what I do. So I have to schedule specific times usually, because most of those companies want it on their schedule. And, so I have to follow a schedule. And of course, you always get like rescheduled and stuff throughout the week, and you got to try to make things fit in on different days and different time slots. I think it's a little crazy. And since I'm doing these video interviews and these product walkthroughs, once I'm actually doing it, I'm spending a good 30 to 45 minutes at the booth, going through all this stuff with them. And so it really drains my time. I just don't get to see everything like I would like to. But I do feel like I accomplished a lot more this year than in previous years. Good. Like, I really feel like after doing this for 5 years, which is crazy. Like, I think this was my 5th Comic-Con, right? I think that's what I said. This was my 5th in a row. Maybe it was my 6th. Either way, 5 or 6 down, I feel like, I'm kind of getting a nice little rhythm going finally.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy because I always feel like I've got it this year, and then you always kind of learn something new as you go. You always figure, you got to keep learning all the time. So there was a lot of cool products though that I saw. Everybody really, I kind of feel like, brought their A game this year. Like, there a lot of amazing things being just shown off, I feel like. From the big announcement from Mattel, of course, on the Thundercats stuff was pretty jaw-dropping, because everybody thought Thundercats was dead, long gone, right? Like, the whole WB relaunch was a failure, and the Bandai figures didn't perform, and we just thought that was their one and only shot at a comeback. And now Mattel's bringing them back, and they're done by the Horsemen, and they're in the same scale as Masters, and it's pretty much what every Thundercat fan has been dreaming of. Like, that's kind of amazing. So that had to have been one of the biggest surprises and exciting moments, to see everybody get real excited about that. That was really cool. I also liked some of the stuff we were seeing from a lot of the smaller companies, too, who have all really been stepping up their game lately, especially with all the licensed stuff that these guys are getting. Mondo had a display of Mad Balls, which looked incredible, right? They were awesome. And, of course, right next to that was their amazing display of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles product that they're getting ready to put out. So they got these, 6-scale turtles that are based on the old Mirage comic looks, and they just look fantastic. I mean, seeing them in person was amazing, and they've all got interchangeable heads, so that way you can have them with the red bandanas like in the comics, or their colored bandanas like the old toy line and cartoon. And they also had all these crazy little accessories in there with them that I didn't even know they were doing. Like, they had little rats and mousers and all kinds of cool stuff in there, and Casey Jones' hockey mask was laying in there, and there was all kinds of neat little things that I think they were teasing us with by putting all these little extra bits and pieces in their display. So being a big Turtles fan, obviously that was one of my favorite things that I saw. I was real excited by that. And we have just had this crazy amount of Turtles product lately, which is getting expensive, and now we're getting these high-end figures, which is really expensive. I've never really gotten into the high-end collectible stuff like the Hot Toys and everything, but I have always said that if a company ever did Turtles and Masters in high-end, I would be doomed. And now Mondo's doing both of those.
That's right.
Because they also announced a Masters line at Comic-Con in that same style, and I was just like, oh, God.
You're sunk.
I know, I'm doomed.
Yeah, the Mad Balls that they showed were actually sculpted by Phil Ramirez, who, everyone remembers, did a bunch of the Marvel Legends back in the Toy Biz days.
Nice. Okay.
And has been doing a ton of stuff for DC Collectibles lately. So, yeah, he sculpted the new Mad Balls, and that's so in his wheelhouse, and they just came out
They're
great.
beautiful. They're based on the old artwork, like the card back art. So they look more like the actual artwork for the Mad Balls than they do the vintage foam Mad Balls do. I mean, the details are amazing on them. They look so good.
So how are those going to be available, and what's the price point going to be and stuff?
They're trying to get them like $15. They're making them out of vinyl, so they're not that foam stuff that's going to disintegrate in 3 years, and they're trying to get them. I don't know if mass, but certainly, all the online retailers and stuff too. They want to make them, where everyone can get them.
So cool. That's so cool. Talk about because Mad Balls too is one of those vintage lines that has gotten very expensive and collectible over the years. Like trying to pick up the old ones is a bit pricey now, especially because they're made of that foam material. Think about all the ones that got tore up when we were kids and have disintegrated over time, which is why the value has gone up on them. So it's cool that we've kind of got this Mad Balls Classics line, basically. Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of neat.
And Danny, did you interview Mondo?
I didn't get a chance to because every time I went over there, they had something else going on. And they felt bad because they kept apologizing. But it was literally one of those things where I was like, hey, I'm free now. Are you guys got a moment? Oh, we're getting ready to go to this meeting. It's crazy like that. So I never got a chance to get a good interview with them.
How will it?
I talked to the art director guy there for quite a while. I think on Saturday, and his voice was shot.
Oh yeah, I bet they were doing tons of press with stuff.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it sounded like they were going to do some licensed Mad Balls stuff too.
Oh wow,
like a Hellboy Mad Ball.
Oh
stuff,
wow, oh that'd be neat.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I talked to a ton of people, but I think
they were also selling those little pins, and I totally bought all those Mad Balls pins. Put them on my lanyard at Comic-Con, and that that was my swag. I just wore those Mad Balls pins on my lanyard, so that was exciting. I was pretty excited about that. It's just like the weird, kind of out of nowhere reveals like that always get me the most excited.
Now, Dan, you guys all. You either have a site or you do video reviews. I mean, at what point do you target a company, say like Mondo, that's doing a product that you really want, but the price point's super high, and let them know as clearly as possible that you will very happily review their product if they send it to you?
Oh, let me get some notes. I need to write this down.
That might happen on occasion.
Yeah.
I might have gone home with a few cards.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did swap cards with them, and it's kind of nice, too, because I am kind of at this point now where I can introduce myself as Pixel Dan, and they'll go, oh, Pixel Dan, and they kind of know the name, which is always helpful. It's very helpful that's kind of a thing now.
Well, that's what was. I have to tell a quick story because that was really funny. I was talking to the art director for the toy stuff at Mondo, and he sort of knew who I was, but he's newish on the job. And right as I was sort of talking to him, this couple walked up, and one of the guy goes, "Are you Action Figure Insider?"
Oh, cool.
Go, yeah. And he goes, "Oh, I love your site. Thank you so much."
That's awesome.
I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Sort of walked away.
You couldn't have timed that perfectly.
It was like Abby. Yeah, after it was over, Abby goes, "It's like you."
Yeah, right.
Because his attitude changed, where it's just like, "Oh, people know this guy.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right, let's talk
to him."
Yeah,
People know him. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those cases where I would go, yeah, so I'm kind of like the Masters guy. I do a lot with Mattel. You should go talk to them.
Right.
But yeah, so I think this weekend or next weekend is MondoCon in Texas. It's coming up, where they have a big convention in Austin where they invite a bunch of their fans and stuff. So hopefully there'll be some more news on some of that stuff out of MondoCon in the next week or so.
Looking forward to it. I think it's pretty exciting seeing the stuff they're doing. Like,
Yeah.
I jumped on the pre-order for that first turtle right away just because I thought that was such a cool concept, you know, based on the original artwork of Mikey.
Yep.
You know, stuff like that is just really neat to me. So I'm very excited to see these guys doing something like that.
Even just like that life-size bolt from Iron Giant that they did, like that hits me right in the feels. If I can borrow something from the kids, like I have no need for that or room for that, but man, do I want that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, my favorite thing that I saw was probably the Mondo Turtles.
Oh, cool.
Those things were just a knockout.
They're gorgeous, man. They're so gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah, and all those little accessories and stuff are things that are going to come with each of the turtles.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
Yeah, so they just wanted to put all these sort of Easter eggs from the storylines in as bonus stuff for hardcore fans. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So there was that. Doggone it, if Gentle Giant didn't show a gigantic vintage Jumbo Jabba,
Yeah.
which again, no place for that.
Oh.
Except maybe if I want, to put him in the car, drive in the carpool lane with him. But, that thing was massive and cool.
Yeah.
It seems like just such a simple concept, but when you see any of those jumbo lines in person, they're so attractive. You just like I didn't think that the jumbo GI Joes would really scream at me as much as they did when I saw it in person. It's just so good looking, and I don't know, it's a struggle. They're big, how do you store them? But when you see them, it's hard to resist.
But then they made those little 2-inch ones.
They did.
That's you just put those in your pocket and you're on the go. Yeah, they're doing little 2-inch superpowers, which again that hits me right in the in the nostalgia bone.
Right. Can I ask about that? I mean, I saw them in
Yes.
that kind of pyramid container, but I didn't get a good enough look to know if they come off that little base.
I believe they all do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the superpowers ones have sort of bobbleheads because that's the only way they could do it with the license that Hasbro has.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of a
So-
bummer for me. Like, I got kind of excited about the potential of those 2-inch figures, and then I saw they were bobbleheads, and I was immediately like, huh.
Yeah.
Just the superpowers.
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
the
Secret
or
Wars.
the secret
Yeah.
wars, not the superpowers. So, and those are all supposed to be in like Walgreens and stuff.
Oh, very
wow.
cool.
And retail. Walgreens actually has an exclusive Deadpool for those guys. So
Hey, speaking of Walgreens, Daniel, I don't know if you want to talk about either of your panels just yet, but I do want to say that your second panel, which was the 10-year anniversary of Action Figure Insider, was really cool. Not just because there was a pretty large gathering of old school AFI friends either on the panel or in the audience, but one of the guests that you had as a panelist was the buyer for Walgreens, which was fascinating to both Meg and I. We just really enjoyed hearing him talk and getting his perspective on things, kind of as a new, fresh face, not only to the panel, but kind of to this whole, world of action figure toy collecting.
right, yeah. So that's Steve, and he's sort of dipping his toe in this. He's worked for Walgreens for a while, but he's only been the toy buyer, I think a little over a year now, maybe 2 years. And, he's still sort of finding his way with interacting with collectors. He's got, he's really active on Twitter.
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter.
That's where where he's really sort of found a place to communicate with fans. And I had reached out to him early on to see if we could do an interview with him on AFI, just because I'd always wanted to talk to a buyer and because there's such kind of a secretive thing, and he ran up the flagpole, and their PR group didn't like it and stuff, so
Okay.
Didn't end up doing that. But he and I kept in contact, and as it got closer, and he let me know he was coming to the show and bringing some of the other Walgreens folks, and I was like, oh, that's terrific. Let's make sure we meet. And then when Jesse Falcon had to drop out of the panel, I was like, well, I'll try that again. I'll ask Steven, see if he can, if he's willing to try it out. And so he went back, and they were like, yeah, that's great.
Huh.
And I think it was a surprise to him and the rest of the Walgreens crew just how excited fans were about that being this new venue to find toys, and how excited they were for all the exclusive that they had been getting in there. I think it was a real eye-opener to them just how embraced they all were at the show.
Well, that's super cool
that
that you were able to kind of give him that exposure so that his colleagues could kind of see what he's doing for this this pretty large community.
Yes. Yeah, because it's one thing to sort of say, oh, people on Twitter are really digging this, but to be in a room, because there was that panel had such a great vibe, that just the energy of the room, it was full of people excited about toys and collecting, and just great questions and great laughter, and it was just a really fun time for everyone. I feel like the panelists and the audience had a good time
until they kept giving you the time's up warning, which seemed like it came within 10 minutes. That panel could have gone double the length, easy.
Yeah. It always feels that way too. It's very strange, but yeah, that one went well. The women in comic, or the women in toys one the night before went really well too. There was a particular woman in the audience that was like, I've been coming to your panels for 10 years, at Comic-Con, and I've been waiting for this one.
That's
awesome. That's cool.
So I was like, well, I'm glad we finally got around to it. So yeah, it was a great show all over for that sort of thing. We got some other looks at some Star Wars stuff. We got to see that giant 6-inch scale TIE fighter.
Holy smokes, when he held that thing up, like the room just went wild.
Who's going to get that?
I am.
I would like to have it, but I just think it's probably too big for my house.
It's just like where am I going to put that Snake Mountain? I don't know, but I'm going to buy it. There's too many big things coming out. But
that Snake Mountain, I'm actually sitting out in my garage because I've woken the baby twice, and so my wife gave me the dead look. So I'm in the garage, and I'm happy here, so no problems. But I'm looking at that Castle Grayskull box, thinking about that Snake Mountain, and I'm like, oh my god, like I don't know.
I want you to be sitting on the Grayskull box with your laptop in your lap, recording the podcast.
Pretty. I'm not sitting on it, but I could be. So I'm just in the thinker pose. But yeah, I'm just thinking. I'm like, you have this idea, right? That like I can put like Castle Grayskull up on one side of the top of the shelf and Snake Mountain 5 feet away on the other side, right next to each other. And I was like, man, I'm like, I don't know how that toy line just takes up so much space, and it's before we even get to talking about this mountain.
Right.
So.
The way they kind of led into the reveal of the TIE Fighter was kind of fun. I mean, they talked about the figure first, and everybody was, pretty excited about the figure itself. And then they said something like, but we just felt like it needed another accessory. And, that was kind of the lead into the reveal. And then they picked this thing up from under the table, and it's massive. And this one guy's just holding it up there for everybody to see and everybody to get their photos. And after a certain point, he's like, can I put this thing down? It's getting heavy.
I feel a little better that it fit under a table. Like, that's good.
Unlike the Hot Toys.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Right?
Like, that, the only reason you could feel better about getting the Hasbro 6-inch is because you go, well, honey, it's not the Hot Toys one.
Hot Toys one.
You could turn it on its side, and it could be a table.
It could be a table.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Oh, man. Yeah, and then they had that display of, like, 4 or 5 of them in there, just showing off. So, that is just insane. Who would have thought we would get a TIE fighter for 6-inch scale figure?
They've done a lot of things that I never expected them to do with that line. You know, like when they were first showing off Tauntauns and Wampas, I was like, I can't believe you guys are doing Tauntauns and Wampas.
Yeah.
Now we have TIE fighters.
Right.
Absolutely insane. Yeah. Anything else anyone saw that they really dug that they want to mention?
Not toy related, but I did get to a couple panels during con, and one of them I wanted to go to in particular was kind of a feature on this Pixar artist Sanjay Patel. I don't know if we've talked about him before, but he's of Indian descent, and his family immigrated to America, and so his parents are pretty traditional Indians of the Hindu faith, and he's been working at Pixar for a long time, and a number of years ago he started to do some side projects, some kind of personal projects, and he's ended up releasing a few books that are just beautifully illustrated, and they're about like Hindu mythology and deities and this and that. And I've gotten them because I have a bit of an interest in that just through the yoga connection. So anyway, it's been announced that the next Pixar short is going to was written and directed and art directed by him. So I'm like, you know what, I want to go to that panel. That sounds really cool. So we did, and the interview with him, of course, was interesting, but then they showed the short actually twice, like just twice in a row, and it's gonna be the next one to come out, and it's gonna show before The Good Dinosaur, which I think comes out this fall.
Yeah,
November. Okay. And it was just I don't want to give away too much, but it's just a gorgeous short, like just. I don't know if you can picture kind of the elaborate, just beautiful nature of kind of like Hindu mythological artwork, but it's kind of like that, but Pixar style, with a really touching story. So I'm glad we took the time to go to that panel. It was totally worth it, and I kind of look forward to kind of that getting out there and seeing what people's reactions are to it.
Sweet,
interesting.
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to DC Collectibles too, just because their animated line has been awesome so far.
Yeah.
And I'm a little worried coming up because there's just so many that are crammed together in the last 3 months of the year that I'm worried about budgeting them all in. Like, oh my gosh. But the new ones they showed, just some awesome choices, because stuff that we never got the first time, which is really what I've been waiting for. That Zatanna, the Commissioner Gordon was gorgeous. And then I guess it's Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul or whatever. But in his show appearance instead of in his funky armor. So, that was cool to finally see that. And then I think Etrigan and Clarion rounded out that wave. But that was just really a big cool thing to see. Just to see that animated Gordon just in perfect 3D. I'm like, okay, that is awesome. So
those figures are beautiful.
And the clay face that is coming, they did a
that's right.
Press
you guys couldn't show it, but you saw it.
Yeah, we couldn't take pictures of it, but holy smokes, all these different heads. There are 2 different heads. All these different arm attachments. I mean, just, oh.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So now, Jim Fletcher, if you're listening, I can't afford maybe to review all these on my website where I do reviews.
Right.
But
compliment his jacket; it might help.
I did love his jacket. I love the little bat wings and all the little. Yeah, actually, if I could go ahead and get the jacket, if I'm just going to start asking for crazy stuff. But just saying that it's a great line, and I mean we'll fit them all in somewhere. They're all just awesome. But I'm still just bowled over by how I never even considered that being a thing, and now it's and I'm looking at okay, I have to make sure that there's room in the budget for this. Just here a year later, it's just an amazing little line.
It totally is, yeah. Very, very exciting stuff.
The armored, I didn't get to see this in person, hopefully you guys did, the armored Power Lord from the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool thing that I didn't expect to see either. We weren't sure really what was happening with Power Lords, and they had some awesome new sculpts there for that. And that powered up one, I mean, I love the nostalgia of the vintage ones and everything, but that powered up one I'm ready for that too. That one was really awesome.
Yeah, those all look great, and yeah, it was great to see kind of an update on that
Absolutely.
line finally.
What about that giant troll that they had too for their Mythic Legions
Oh,
line?
with smoke.
Yeah, how cool
Yes.
is that? I'm excited for that because I know that when they first talked about that line, they said that was one of the things they really wanted to do was big trolls and creatures.
And that was kind of the thing they said that it was going to be we have to do 4 inches because we want to do this stuff.
Yes.
And
yes.
now we're at 6 inches and we can still do that stuff. So that's
Yeah.
all off. Yeah. That line though, it needs. I feel bad because every time I go to abbreviate it, I write ML on my notes, and I'm like, oh, it's not Marvel Legends.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, well, I'll write down FHML, and I'm like, no, FHML is too close to FML, so I got to figure out shorthand for that line.
So you have to have a number 4.
There you go. Yes, 4ML. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, so overall, a good con, I gotta say. Very different because it's felt, not to say that the show is not still a beating, and a lot of work and a lot of walking, and but it felt, I don't want to say smaller, but it felt more manageable, I guess is the words I would use.
You're just a pro now. If you're finally,
I was going to say, maybe you're just figuring it out every year like me.
I know that's not true. I'm still just taking pictures and playing grab ass till they kick me out of the hall. That's all I know. So let's segue a little bit. Still talking about toys. Since we have all talked last, they have made the official announcement of Force Friday.
Yes.
Which is the day all of the Star Wars stuff is going to be, well, not all, but a goodly amount will first be available for Episode 7.
So,
and there's already a little bit of stuff trickling out.
Just a quick shout out to Poe Ghostal. Stop listening. If you're listening to the podcast, turn it off.
I don't think it's too spoilerific.
No, I know.
We just know.
I just want
some
to give
stuff
him a hard time, so I apologize to everybody else.
Inside jokes.
I apologize to everyone else but one person on the planet. I have singled you out, and I love you.
He better be listening. That's all. So yeah, it's the first kind of it's the Midnight Madness in quite some time.
Yes.
And this year, it's not just going to be Hasbro like it has mostly been in years past. Like everyone can start showing off their stuff on September 4th. The real difference this year is we don't know what we're getting.
Right.
Necessarily. Again, some stuff has leaked out a little bit, but before we kind of knew this, you start your list and you check them off when you get in the store. Right. As of right now, we don't know what we're even looking for when we get in.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Now, I did ask a couple of Hasbro people, and I think I went to 3 or 4 of them just to see if I could get a different answer. Will there be any sort of early announcement just so we know what we're looking for? And will there be a preview figure like we have seen in years, movies past? Ever since Episode 1, we've gotten...
That's true.
And even special editions, there was a little bit of preview figure stuff. So no one would give me a definitive answer.
They all know
this is on a lockdown.
But they would neither confirm nor deny. And some of them would just look at me with one eye. So could we find out something this weekend at D23?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Probably.
But I feel like we might get maybe some inkling of what we're getting ahead of time. Because otherwise you're just, I can't imagine the madhouse Toys R Us is going to be if you don't know what the list of figures coming is.
Right.
There's going to be stabbings and stompings and
That's gonna.
I don't know what all. So, are any of you guys planning to attend a Force Friday event?
I am.
I probably won't.
Oh.
So
Daniel, you won't.
And it's not anything specific. I think it's just kind of been. I worked at Toys R Us in 1999.
Oh,
and so I was there for the very first Episode 1 release night, and it was just so ridiculous that I've been there, I've done it, and I'm good. Like I had it's almost like flashbacks. I remember the specific thing is like we had everything stocked, but no one really knew how big it was going to be. So we had everything set up near the front of the store, and it was all set up fine, and we opened the doors, and then in the floodgates, and then in 23 seconds everything was empty. And but we still had tons of it on U-boats packed back a little bit further away, so we could replenish, every few hours. No, we had to replenish every few seconds. And so just and I was still relatively new there at that time, so I was low man on the totem pole. So I'm the one that's got to carry this case of Hasbro figures, box knife in hand, unzipping the cases. I approach the horde, and then the horde finds me before I find it, and then I've just got a million hands reaching into this box, and I'm surrounded. And it's kind of funny in retrospect, but I was a very young teenager at the time, and I'm like, okay, this is a little much.
Yeah.
So,
that sounds kind of
so I'm just kind of I'm cool with it. I don't need to see that scene, but I'm really excited for the folks that want to go. All you guys, I'm sure you'll all have a blast. But yeah, I've always just having been on the other side of it, of having to walk through it and get the shelves restocked and get the product out, and I remember just having that box knife out to open the thing, and then just having so many arms and hands around you that you're like, the only thing you can think of is I've got to close that box knife, or I'm not going to have a job in the morning. So it was just crazy times. So it's all cool. I don't diss it for sure, but it just, like I said, I'm probably going to sit at home. It's September, right? I think I don't even know the date.
September 4th.
That makes sense. 4th. All right. Yeah, I'll be home. So give me a call if you're bored in line somewhere.
Do you think the turnouts are going to be like they were in the past?
I hope so.
I think there'll be a good turnout, but I don't think it's going to be the same mayhem that it was for episode 1. I feel like we're kind of past that now.
I think people realize that, these figures that we just went completely mad for, that night.
They're
really,
over here in a box.
Yeah, I've got a case now,
I see them.
and I couldn't unload if I wanted to, that type of a thing.
But when you think about it, though, again, this year it's not just Star Wars figures. There's pop vinyl. There's all this other stuff, and those Funko fans
oh man,
are pretty rabid.
Yeah.
So are they? It's just it's like Spin Master's got stuff that's coming out. Jax has got stuff that's coming out. There's just all this stuff, and will people have to have it all? I don't know. Again, we don't know that much about the movie to know who and what to be so excited about. The Stormtroopers look cool. There's a silver Stormtrooper, looks cool. But we don't know what all that we need to, why we need to go crazy yet. And again, there's a Star Wars panel at D23.
Yeah.
Will we know more? That'll be interesting to see.
I imagine we will.
So if we go back, what were the preview figures for the prequels? I remember a Mace Windu, but I'm kind of drawing blanks now.
There was
there was Mace Windu.
Yellow
There was the
wasn't there like a clear
yellow?
yellow?
Yeah.
Yep. There was also the battle droid on the staff.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And what was it for episode 3?
I think that there wasn't there 4. There was the astromech. There was a clone trooper.
Yeah, that movie.
Yeah,
had 4.
there were.
Yeah,
that's right. There was a series of 4. So then
Like
we're
a
missing
Wookiee?
episode 2.
I think a Wookiee was one of them.
Wow. Okay.
I couldn't remember.
Between the 4 of us.
Yeah, I can't remember what the episode 3 one was.
And so, how far in advance did those preview figures come out before?
Well, the Mace
those...
Windu for episode 1 was a mail away, right? We had
That
a mail away for that one. Yep, and then
But the staff droid was in stores.
the Staff Droid. I remember that. Okay. Yep, those were the preview figures for episode 1. And then episode 2 there was 4. There was the astromech, there was a clone trooper, there was
there a Wookiee? I kind of feel like there was.
not for episode 2.
Am I thinking that's
Wookiees
it?
are 3.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 3.
Was Dooku one of the... Wasn't there a Dooku that was... Was he a preview figure for episode 2? Gosh, I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
I've got them somewhere. I just got to dig them out.
Or
If only we had the power of the internet.
No, we're just sitting here trying to remember.
For 3, I'm seeing a Grievous,
Oh, Grievous.
a Palpatine maybe. I don't know about him. I can't tell. I don't know who that is. Tion Medon, he shows up as one here.
Is he one of the guys from that? Are we talking about episode 2?
Episode 2, it looks like there was a Django Fett.
Oh, yes,
That's
okay.
right.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
With a little, he was on a green card.
Yep.
Yeah. With a little fire shooting out of his guns.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
All those kind of pre-posed episode 2 figures. Which
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Like.
Yeah.
Sam Wessel, maybe, was the other one?
I think, I think maybe.
Because it was Zam, Django, a clone trooper, and that astromech droid. I think
Okay.
those were the previews for episode 2. Wow, yeah. It's all coming back.
There are Star Wars figures listening right now that are so mad at us. That
I
are
know.
like, oh my god.
You call yourselves experts.
They're starting podcast tonight.
That's right. Yeah. We've slept since. We bought a few Star Wars figures since then.
But, yeah.
So
Well, a few.
Yeah. And what is this? So yeah, Clone Trooper. Yeah, that was the end of Zam Wessel and the Yellow Astromech. Those were the 4 for episode 2. All right. So yeah, will we have more?
well, we're gonna get a preview figure. Better hurry up.
I was going to say, it's going to have to come out, like, now.
Does the Stormtrooper count then in a way if we don't get one?
Yeah,
Oh, we did get that Stormtrooper.
Did you get the Comic-Con
I
Stormtrooper?
didn't get that
Yeah.
Stormtrooper, but yes,
Okay,
people did get that Stormtrooper.
yeah.
I got it.
Well, yeah, that's the question. I mean, normally they have had something either mail away or retail for everyone to get.
Yeah. I wonder if they are just counting this as their sneak peek figure, though.
They should go totally retro, and they should just bring back like Jedi points, and you have to get so many Jedi points, so you have to cut all the figures off the card.
Yeah, those things were amazing, and not just the Star Wars ones, for all those lines, like Indiana Jones and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed that stuff as a kid, cutting those things out and putting them in an envelope and mailing them away. I mean, could that stuff work nowadays? I mean, would kids be into that?
We just got that prototype Boba Fett that way just a few years ago. I didn't even collect Star Wars, and I wanted that, so I had to go buy 12 trilogy figures to get that.
Right.
Yeah, and I just haven't opened him ever, which is dumb. I just thought about that, but I've got him.
That's true. Yeah, we had to cut out all the whatever those anti-monitor points.
Oh yeah, well, some of us cut out more
Heroes.
than others, as I recall.
I was actually going through, you guys know this with the listener zone. I'm having a child in November, my second daughter. So I'm in the process of converting my toy room into a nursery. So I'm having to lay hands on every toy that I own, both from the toy room and in storage, because my wife is of the impression that if you're going to keep this stuff, why put it in boxes where they'll get crushed? Why not put them in plastic totes and actually preserve them if you're going to hold on to them? To which I say, that's crazy. No, she's actually right. So, yeah, we've been going through, and it's almost like a game of memory. It's like, oh, I saw one of this, and that should go in that tote. And this goes here.
I know this game.
But
I'm staring at it
I got
now.
I got to lay hands on all of my Infinite Heroes and saw several with the little thing cut off the back of them. But I remember as a kid, I sent away for Boba Fett, the Emperor, Admiral Akbar. Who was the other one? But for some reason, I sent away for 5 Boba Fett.
Nice.
Man, wow.
Why wouldn't you?
Why not?
Yeah. Because I had all the, the little proofs of purchase.
That's
so
awesome.
I had sort of an army of Mandalorians before we knew that you could do that. Yeah. But I only ever got one of any. Oh, Anakin. I remember Anakin Skywalker. You can send away for him.
Oh, yeah.
So I mailed in all those things for those guys, and I loved that stuff. And going back to the very beginning, the sneak preview set, the early bird kit. I did that too.
Wow.
My business.
And I mailed away for that packet of accessories like Hoth backpacks and Minot,
Sweet.
gas masks. I mailed away for the the extra set of figures from the Micro World. There was one for a play set, those L-shaped plastic things that you can stick the little cards in. They had those for Star Wars.
Come on.
So I did all that
Clark
stuff.
Kent.
I love that.
Clark
Yes,
Kent.
Clark Kent, superpowers.
Still
Yeah,
my
There was-
favorite.
The Indiana Jones Belloc in ceremonial robes.
Yeah.
right.
G.I. Joe had a number of good ones. I
was trying to stretch my mind to think of a Joe one because I know I flag points for the thing when I was a kid, but I'm pulling a blank. I think there was a bandolier that had like 3 Joes.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And I think like the
Like
first series,
Starduster.
the first series I think had like God, it was almost like a windsurfer type thing.
Well, I thought Cobra Commander was like the early thing. I'm not old enough to have collected it then, but I remember Cobra Commander, and I do remember there was like a windsurfer, like just the accessory for them to ride. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'd all be down to cut some
I'm
purchase
good.
off,
Yeah.
mail in for a
Yeah.
preview figure.
Hear that, toy companies?
I kid you not. I was not collecting original trilogy collection or whatever it was called, but I wanted that Boba Fett so bad that I ended up buying 12 or however many of them just for that whole purpose. And I'm pretty sure that they're still out here somewhere, like a Leia and an Ewok and whatever with the barcode just missing,
Yeah,
just so I could get that Boba Fett.
it works.
So, it definitely worked.
So for you guys that are going to Force Friday Midnight Madness, what store do you think you're going to hit? Toys R Us, a Target, a Walmart?
I'll probably hit Toys R Us most likely.
Just because it's
Yeah, exactly. It's the toy store at midnight.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
exactly.
the right thing to do.
yeah. I mean, like we've also talked about that in the like that experience with Walmart. Daniel, I think you told that story about how you and your buddy were in line at Toys R Us, and then he went down to Walmart and he's like, nobody's here.
Yeah.
For episode 3, I went to a Walmart, and it was pretty much the same experience. There was
Yeah.
just caution tape around, this mass of product, and the spattering of collectors that showed up were just kind of standing on the other side of this caution tape, and at midnight they opened it, and it was easy breezy. Whereas the Toys R Us experiences were not quite, as
They were
easy.
more traumatic.
Traumatic.
Yeah, the documentary thing that I'm working on, we have gotten permission to shoot for Force Friday at the Toys R Us in Times Square.
That's awesome.
And the producer, they don't have anyone to do it yet, and he keeps sort of hinting that he wants me to be that guy. So I can't imagine what that. I have not committed to it yet,
Oh,
but I can't imagine.
That'd be a fun experience, though. You'd have a cool story
It
to tell,
would.
right? Like,
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Maelstrom.
God.
I'm gonna try to probably do some filming just of my own. I'm not doing like a major documentary or anything, but I do this video thing online. So yeah, and I used to work at the local Toys R Us, so I'm gonna kind of just be like, hey, I'm gonna film stuff. Hope that's cool. I don't think they'll care. And I don't know. I don't even know what I'm gonna do yet. I just thought it might be fun because this is the first one of these things that's been going on since I've really been doing the video thing, and I thought it might be fun just to kind of do some sort of documentation of a Midnight Madness Star Wars event. So we'll see what I come up with. I don't know.
Yeah.
No promises, because if it all turns out like crap, I'm not going to put it together and put it online. You know what I mean? But we'll see what happens.
But it's funny because there's stuff already leaking out. Like I went into a Toys R Us just this past week, and the Star Wars aisle just looked sad. There were no figures. There was it was sort of filled in with a lot of Lego and stuff. And so I just snapped a picture saying, "Oh boy, the Force Friday can't get here soon enough." And I just posted on the AFI Instagram, which propagated it to the Twitter and the Facebook, and didn't think anything else about it. And then that night I got an email from a representative of a toy company saying, what Toys R Us is this? Because some of our September 4th product is on the shelf. And I didn't even notice that it wasn't figures, but it was like, oh yeah, look at that. There's the little Episode 7 guy on that packaging. So there's that, and we know Micro Machines are coming back.
That's crazy. I did not see that.
I know, that's awesome.
Man, it's so cool.
Oh,
Some of that has leaked in the UK, I guess, for Episode 7, which, that's trying to resist all that.
Yeah.
And then there were some figures that leaked out today.
Yeah.
Saw somewhere, and it looked like Hong Kong. And then I guess Amazon Canada leaked some of the Funko stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah.
What's really concerning to me with all these leaks is just what small percentage of stuff they probably represent, right? Like we're able to name a half dozen or more things that we've already seen, but just imagine if that's only 1% of everything or 2% of everything. Like I mean, there's just so much stuff that they can't possibly contain it all. That's this fear that I have. I mean, I'm not sure exactly I'm not going to run out the first night and buy it, so obviously I'm not the right person to point this out, but just the enormity of what there might be to collect given how many of these leaks there already are to how much is going to be out there that day.
And it's all coming, when we're recording this, for two of us, it's 24 days. For two of you,
Yeah.
it's
Is it
23
already?
days.
I'm in the garage.
Yeah.
I don't know what time it is.
It's a little bit midnight for you
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
like
So-
12:20 right now.
Uh-oh. Well, no wonder the wife was getting mad about the baby being awake.
So, yeah, well, we had a third topic, but I don't know that we'll get to it. We should, because I know it's late for you guys, and you've got to work. So, should we save that for next time?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so. We
Sure.
had a lot of I think we had a lot more to say about Comic-Con than we realized we were
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah.
There's a lot to
Yeah.
say. All right, well then, let's wrap this up by talking about our Dan of the Month. Dan Newman, do you want to talk a little bit about who we have chosen for the August Dan of the
Sure
Month?
thing. We didn't limit our choice of Dan action figures to the character having to be named Dan. We also expanded the range to the actor playing the character being named Dan or Danny or Daniel, and that's the case. That's the case this time. And so we've chosen the Danny Trejo Machete figure from NECA. And
Hey, Dan, did you know that he was 71 years old?
I just found that out.
I just found it out too. That's so funny.
Doing a little bit of research in advance of this podcast, yes, I did look at Danny Trejo's IMDb
I'm sorry, I'm a jerk.
and
I apologize.
Wikipedia page, and when I saw that he was 71 years old, it really did surprise me. I would not have guessed that. But yeah, so this is a figure that NECA made in conjunction with the movie, I think around 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And it is a 6-inch scale. It's fairly pre-posed, which it's kind of an interesting figure because it sort of has good articulation. In other words, like the ankles are ball joints, the wrists are ball joints, the shoulders, the head, the waist. But the legs themselves are solid sculpted.
Yeah.
So there's no knee or waist articulation or hip.
You don't
rather.
need knees to swing a machete.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
That's real typical of them for that period too.
Yes,
So
for that period. I was going to say it's just been within the last couple years here that
Yeah.
they've really been amping up the articulation on their figures. So
Yeah.
it's not surprising to see some of those older ones with the completely static legs.
Yeah. But I mean, the sculpt is amazing. I mean, the likeness is pretty spot on. He's scary as a figure, and he's scary in real life. The tattoos are really detailed, and overall, it's a cool figure if you're a fan of Danny Trejo or the Machete franchise.
And if you're in the Los Angeles area, opening soon on La Brea, Trejo's Tacos.
Oh.
I'm going.
Yes. Apparently it's not. I thought it was open, but I just looked it up, and it says opening soon.
Okay.
So you can look for it. Look for it on the Facebooks and stuff. They've got a little Facebook page and Instagram. So if you want to eat a scary man's tacos, then I think this is the restaurant for you.
Hopefully, one of the ingredients is not human intestines.
You would hope that, yeah,
But
exactly.
you never know.
Because Machete kills, and then apparently, also we just found out, he kills again in his face.
Nice.
Apparently, the third movie in this franchise is going to be something like Machete Kills Again in Space.
Yeah.
In
That's
space.
so awesome. I love it.
So, watch out. I hope he's killing like aliens and monsters and not like astronauts that have trained their whole lives for these jobs.
Yeah.
Oops.
That would be a terrible way to end their career. What is Machete's doing up here?
I would love to see a Machete Alien crossover.
Oh wow! I like how you
Yeah,
think. I'd watch
Take one
that.
on with his bare hands. I mean, have you guys seen the Machete movie?
I have not.
I've seen the first
Yeah,
one.
me too. I haven't seen the second one, but oh my god, I was rewatching some of it today during my lunch break, and there's a lot of crazy things that happen. But one of my favorite scenes in that movie is when he's in the hospital, after suffering some injuries, and like the people that are after him are coming to the hospital to kill him. And so he's figuring out his way, his escape plan. But while he's laying in his hospital room, there's this little conversation between the doctor and the nurses, and they mention that, hey, did you know that if you unwrap the a human's intestines, they're 10 times the length of the human body? And she's like, oh, so like for a 6-foot person, that means that the intestines are 60 feet long or whatever. And Machete's listening to this. He's taking it all in. And so when he kind of barges out of his hospital room and confronts these guys, one of the things he does is he disembowels one of these guys and grabs his intestine, runs down the hallway, and jumps out the window using the intestines as like a rappelling rope to like launch him, to kind of like go down the side of the building and then crash back into the windows one floor below.
Like
Like
you do.
That's good setup.
I
That's
like
good setup.
Pretty amazing.
That is, indeed. Well, so that's our Dan of the month. Another fine addition to the Legion of Dans, I would have to say. Thank you guys, for once again getting together. Thank you to all the listeners for being patient while we, go to conventions and take care of stuff, and then finally get the website going, and now on iTunes, and very soon on Stitcher. We can't thank you enough.
Yes, thank you guys. And now that we are on iTunes, I'm dying to know what your second incessant question is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm curious. I'm ready.
That'll be a good one. Yeah. Especially if we get it up on Stitcher.
That's right, yeah.
Then
We
they
gotta
can't
do
even
the
ask
Stitcher
that.
thing fast.
Yeah, that was the question I got. Like I shared our website and our iTunes thing, and immediately I got, you got to be on Stitcher now.
And whereas I just found out what Stitcher was today, shortly after finding out Danny Trejo was 71.
Yeah.
And that there's a third Machete
And then
movie
where he
coming.
kills again in space.
We learn much
Right.
on this show.
We do learn a lot.
That's right. We're learning just as
And
much as
what all the
everyone
prequel figures are. We learned all those.
That's right.
Or relearned, I hope. I don't know.
Education.
like a memory game. What was that again?
I think I might have already forgot.
All right, so we are not going to wait so long between episodes. This is our August episode, and we'll have a September and an October, and then I'm not going to commit past that because then I'll have a new
Then there'll
baby.
be a baby.
Oh, no, babies, that's not going to work.
True, I'll
That's not an
I'll be out in the
excuse.
garage.
Yeah.
You'll be in the
Got a
garage
garage.
with me.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. I'm looking forward to that. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
you.
And we'll be back soon with more Legion of Danes.
Bye.